Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Embrace the Face, part 2 of talking with Kathy Kwiatkowski. We are here to discuss all things quantum healing, past life regression, and life between lives. So, Kathy, thank you. Welcome back.
Great to be here.
Yes, we're back after a 3-minute break. So we're still in the same clothes, doing the same thing. Okay, so today's episode is about being super logical and what does that mean, and how can these healing techniques come into play in your life if you are a very logical person, if you are somebody who maybe is new in the healing journey. As we talked about in the first episode with Kathy, she discussed how even sitting down with clients to discuss their emotions, she found that she too had never really actually sat with her emotions. Why? And me too. This is how my life was until I realized, oh, there's such thing as processing emotions and how it can help me heal, is because of the way that we are essentially raised and trained, our brain to be exact. So Kathy's going to talk a little bit about the logical mind, and then we're going to segue into how can you essentially trust that you can deprogram your brain, and or even just simply trust your intuition to guide you. So, Kathy, we're going to get started in discussing the logical mind.
All right.
So, go ahead and let's start with what would you say for somebody who really is new to this world? How would you describe, let's say, the brain? How does our brain actually work?
So when we think of being super logical, it's the part of us that analyzes, right? That observes and stays vigilant and makes sense of our world. And it's hardwired into our brain. So it's talked about as the reptilian brain. Um, First off, you have a reptilian brain that is there from the very beginning. It is your biology, and its job is to keep you safe. And what it doesn't know is that emotions aren't a threat. So it will respond to emotions the same way it would respond to if there was a lion coming towards you, right? It's going to respond the same way. So part of this is just our basic biology, that our brain is wired to keep checking the environment. Are we okay? Are we not okay? Then, when you put in the interpersonal dynamics of what's happening in your family when you're young, it becomes even more complicated. Because what we want as a young child is what? To be seen, to know that we matter, to feel loved, to feel lovable, to feel capable. There's all these like core attachment needs that we have. Well, and I had mentioned in the first segment, like in my family, you didn't, if you were mad about something and you expressed that, there was not going to be a positive response to that. Like you needed to keep that to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There was disregard if you needed more. You just knew, like, disregard and rejection, those land so deeply that you learn at a young age to just not reach out. And this is in the attachment literature too, where kids just learn to, when their bids for connection get missed, they just learn to stop reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
um, so all of that goes back to, am I safe, not just physically but also emotionally? Can I just be me here in this little microcosm of my family, right? And then every, I mean, it's a little overwhelming to think about how every interaction between the adult and the child registers in that little kiddo's brain safe.
We really are their inner voice.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
study, can we, not to cut you off or deter your thought processes, but the age of 7 and even before, uh, we science does talk about moral values by the age of 7, and even prior now, I think, talking about those core values. And you said in the last episode, I loved you talking about how you were playing, and always imagination, right? Imagination more important than knowledge, per Albert Einstein. And as children, before our brain essentially takes over our consciousness, we are all play and we are open to that. So yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
touch on that because
And
I remember you said that in the last
right.
episode.
And we're little sponges too. So if you have parents who are not super creative and imaginative, and they're more in this kind of left brain way of going through the world, they don't encourage that in their child. Like, there's some very basic things that a parent can ask a child that encourages the child to stay connected to their own deep wisdom and their own knowing. Like, what do you think? When you ask a question, what do you think? But when you're more left brain, a parent will feel like, I need to give them the answer, versus, well, what are you encouraging them to kind of look within themselves for an answer. um, you
The most wise advice is usually given to a child who is inherently connected. When I worked in the pediatric ER and we used to infuse ketamine, which I work in a ketamine clinic now, years later, speak of divine guidance. The direct source to the universe allowed the children alone would say things about God and the universe that I was all ears every time, because they were just, kids would rap lyrics about Jesus
yeah.
and like him coming and talk. Like, how would a child know that? So it's very interesting to me, all of that.
Right. So I had mentioned that I got very focused early on at being good at things. Well, when you're
Mm-hmm.
focused on being good at things, it kind of narrows things, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to be and see what happens. It turns into, no, I need to be good at this. And so then all of these other things are out of the viewfinder, right? You're just, it narrows that focus. And so, yes, while I was, I loved climbing trees and just being outside and swimming in the water, that was probably the extent to which I was connected to my spirit. I mean, I can remember them having us draw pictures in grade school, and this is always so telling with children in terms of how much they're tuned into their creativity. I would be like, a tree needs to look a certain way, a house needs to look a certain way. And I'd look at other kids' pictures that look so different, and I'd be like, that's not how you do a tree. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, there's a right way to do a tree, So,
Yes, yes, yeah.
so, so we have that basic wiring, but then if you're in a home that is chaotic, that isn't a safe environment, where you don't really have a secure base that you can go to, um, and that you're going to hear me and see me and know what I need and make sure that I'm okay. You don't have any of that, then you're going to cut yourself off from your emotions, because it just doesn't feel, you don't want to feel hurt all the time. You don't want to feel like there's nobody there for me. So you learn how to not feel that. Um, the other aspect of this whole being logical and analytical is, it's what our culture really reinforces, starting from a very young age. It's starting to be different now, because people are understanding that when they see a child who has an imaginary friend, they're just in touch with the other side. They, when they
Mm-hmm.
see a child who really marches to the beat of their own drum, it's like, wow, that's so awesome, because they're they are following their
Mm-hmm.
spirit. But our culture, it's rules and there's norms. And if you fall outside those norms as a child, you're weird. And
Mhm.
I think more and more kids these days are willing to be weird. The
Yeah,
weird kids
the
are
weirder
finding
you
each
are, the
other.
better. I think the weirder you are, the better. I think the weirder the kid is, the more representation it is that the parents, are embracing and allowing them to be who they are.
Right. But when you're at like grade school and middle school, there's so much of a draw towards wanting to fit. Do I
Yes.
fit? And so we can start cutting off aspects of ourselves so that we can fit. But now when I look at the middle schoolers, I have a 9-year-old granddaughter and a brand new baby grandson, and I
Oh,
watch her, and she's at that pivotal age, right? She's about to turn 10, 10 to 13. It's like, is she going to squelch herself to fit in, or is she going to keep being her
mhm.
beautiful self, right? It's such a critical time.
I think it's fascinating too that you like to observe that as well. My kids are 13 and 15, and I have one who's very spiritual and very open, and one who was very spiritual and very open, and is now, shying more towards losing the sense of self. And it's not easy to witness, and you want them to be independent. And you want to embrace that for them. But yeah, it's definitely a life's work right now, trying to keep children connected.
It is. I don't see children in my one on one practice anymore, except the only exception is adolescents who are marching to the beat of their own drum
I love it.
and who are dealing with how hard it is to stay the course with just being authentic to themselves. And it's so cool because, like, we draw oracle cards together and we talk about, their experiences with staying connected to their spirit and the
Mm,
guidance that they're getting and what that's doing for them. And it's just so wonderful to
it's
have those
beautiful.
conversations with teenagers.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I have definitely had the thought and inclination with other my daughter's friends' mothers, and we're trying to definitely put something similar together, or at least we talk about it. So I think this is going to give me the catalyst to definitely move forward with that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Mm.
So, in thinking about going from this analytical cognitive to being more open to intuition, I mean, my story about going from being a cognitive therapist to being able to be with emotion, that's the big part of it, opening up to that world of emotion and imagination, um, and letting go of this idea that there's one right way. That's left
Mhm.
brain thinking. Is that right or
Mhm.
is that wrong? Comes up all the time in hypnosis. Am I doing it right? How do I know if I'm doing it right?
I
So
know.
it's like, oh, there it is. There's that logical mind. I have a client that I met with just this week, and she was here to do a quantum session, and it took us a while to get to actually doing the process because she just had so many questions. Well, what about this? And how do I know this? And how do I know that? And at first, I'm answering her questions. And after about 10 minutes, I just looked at her. I'm like, we could do this for the whole next hour because your logical mind just really wants to keep doing this.
Yeah. And that's actually a beautiful example right there, because the logical mind just does not want to shut off. And what is meditation or going into the quantum? We're shutting off the mind, opening the heart, and directly connecting. So yeah, I mean, I probably could also sit all day and say, but I like to get to the nitty gritty. So I like to ask my questions when I am under hypnosis. I think between hypnosis and witnessing others in hypnosis and undergoing ketamine, would you say that spirit typically, or the highest self typically, sends the message of everything you have, you need right now? It's all there. Everything you need. It's
Yes.
all within. It's all in there.
Yes.
Stop
Absolutely.
asking. Stop searching. It's in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that, I mean, if you think about if you're raised with parents who their parenting strategy was to give you the answers, then this idea of looking within, it's a very strange idea. I mean, the
Mhm.
very first time I sat with a therapist for myself when I decided to do my own therapy, in the first session, I don't know what I was talking about, but she said to me, "Well, what do you want?" And it dawned on me in that moment, I had never been asked that question. And I
Mm.
was in my late 20s. I had never been asked as a kid, "What do you want? How do
Oh,
you feel?" I was told how I should be feeling and what I should be wanting, you know?
it's so
So,
true. It's
so
so
this
true.
idea of tapping into your own deep wisdom, I was like, huh? What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're the one that's supposed to give me the answers. And as a therapist at the beginning, that's how I was. And it created such pressure inside of me like, I need to know all the answers. I need to be able to answer all of the questions,
Mhm.
which was really doing my clients a disservice because I wasn't really guiding them to tap into their own wisdom. Of course, they want a little bit of extra input from, your knowledge or training or whatever, but yeah.
I think it's also about the typical client, so or the specific client. So I will be the first to admit that I went to probably almost 20 years of therapy on and off, and I had in my late 20s I had a wonderful we lived in North Carolina at the time, so I had a wonderful therapist who, looking back, she was asking me those questions. She was guiding me in like little guided meditations, and I remember one day she had a hypnotherapist come in and try and guide me. I was just so still blocked off then, and I didn't even, and that was 10 years ago, and it took me another, I don't know, 3 years after that to realize what she was doing when I started meditating. So yeah, it's interesting how perception is everything. You can give everybody all the tools, you can tell people, but until they're ready to open up, I think too is a big key factor to shut off that logical mind.
Right. Now, I know in my journey, it really helped to have some more, some actual experiences of seeing things like seeing those orbs at the
Mm,
conference really helped me to see that because I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know I didn't make that up. So, this is, the logical mind, the way that it comes in when you're doing processes is you'll hear the thought, you're just making this up. This is all you. And again, it's doing that because it feels threatened by this opening up. Like, where are we going? What is it going to mean? How is, this may not be safe for you. I mean, my logical mind really served me for a long time, keeping me safe in my family environment. And so, sometimes we can get too much into a wrestling match with our logical mind, like it's bad. It's not bad. It's just meant to be in service to our heart and our spirit and our intuition, not in charge. And so when I work with people, it's like we're not going to villainize your logical mind. We're going to thank it for all of the ways in which it has served you all of these years and just help that part of you to start to get comfortable with this. Like it really is okay. And so it's that kind of finessing that. But for me personally, seeing those orbs, I was like, okay, I know I didn't make that up. So there's got to be something out there, And
Mhm.
then I did, when I was at the I Can Do It conference, there, Brian Weiss, who wrote,
Oh yes,
yeah,
so he was the catalyst. My mother-in-law gave me
Many
many
Lives,
lives,
Many
many
Masters. Yeah,
masters, and I read all of his books. Then that moved me to Michael Newton.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So he was doing a past life regression with an audience full of like 200 people,
wow,
which as a practitioner, I think that's crazy. Like, that's a lot of people
it's a lot
going
of
on past
energy.
life journeys. And how are you keeping track of how they're doing, kind of a thing? But that was years before I got my own training. So I didn't question it. I was like, sure, I'll do this. So he does it, but the brilliance in what he did, which is what I love to do with people too, is after everybody had their journey, he had them sit in groups of 4 and talk about what they experienced. And as when I first came out of it, I thought I didn't see anything. I didn't get anything. Of course, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
so logical. As people talked about what they saw and what they experienced, then I got flashes of what I had actually seen. And they came out of nowhere, and they were not anything that I could have or would have made up, because it was just so different, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's
That's
how,
intuition.
yeah,
That's that intuition right there, deciphering. Because I feel like fear is always our loudest voice.
yeah,
Fear is always that one that's so trust that.
right. The thing that's tricky is, like, for me, I was able to trust it because it was scenes of, like, it wasn't scenes that were reflective anything of like movies I had seen or books that I had read. So
Mhm.
it felt so different that it was easier for me to trust it. On the other hand, sometimes people, when they do past life regression, they do see scenes that are very similar to movies that they've watched or books that they've read. And then they're like, well, I'm just seeing that because of this series I've been watching on Netflix. And I'm like, maybe you've been watching that series on Netflix because it resonates with a lifetime that you.
Yes. So I keep feeling called to share this. So I know that, so Michael Newton's Life Between Lives is different from Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis technique. So just to give the listeners an idea of this imagination that we're talking about. So when Dolores Cannon, her template to guide one through into the quantum is utilizing the imagination. So for people listening, if you have a moment, you can do this technique. So Dolores Cannon, you start with breathing, shutting off the mind, opening the heart, and then you are called to visualize a red bird, visualize a blue car. That's the imagination that we're working with. So when you're reading a book, when you picture the characters and then you go to a movie and it's not the person that you envisioned, that's the imagination. Whatever's in play for you, for your soul's blueprint, like that's that those pictures, those sounds, those smells, those tastes, all of that, that is yours. That is your movie, your blueprint, and you can create anything out of it that you want. You can bring in any wisdoms, those inner wisdoms that you want, just by utilizing, like, so I just always like to point that out. Like, it's really not that difficult, so long as we can shut off the logical mind and then throughout everything in life, trusting that intuition, trusting that inner voice, trusting that heart center. I think when we just take a moment to breathe and tap into that heart chakra and really visualize it, breathe with it, watch it expanding, and then start asking the questions from there. What do I want? What does my soul want? What am I here to do? What do I need to work on? Where am I feeling in my body these emotions? And I feel like that's where the logical minds and the intuition are deciphered, utilizing the imagination and from the heart.
I love the way that you just explained all of that. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's my rambling third eye thought that came through
Um,
while you were talking.
Couple of thoughts that came to me while you were saying that. The first was I remembered. So when my son was young, He did karate for years, 10 years. And after a year of sitting watching him, I decided, why am I just sitting here watching? So I started doing karate as well and did that for 10 years. It was great. Um,
Amazing.
my sensei at the time gave me the book, The Gift of Fear. Have you read it?
I have not. No. The
Okay.
gift of
The
fear.
Gift of
Okay.
Fear, it's been around for a long time. Basically, really talks about the importance of listening to your gut feelings about things.
Mm.
When I studied with Sonia Choquette, the first thing she said was, you get gut feelings about things. When you get gut feelings, that is your intuition. And so when people say to me, well, I don't know if I can tap into my intuition, the first thing I say is, when's the last time you just got a gut feeling about something and you were right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your intuition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that as well. One of the ways that I quieted my logical mind when I was first getting into all of this, especially when I did my own past life regression and LBLs, and I would come, well, it even started back when I was reading Journey of Souls. And like I said, I got the feeling like I already know all of this. So then when I went and did processes and I got stuff and my mind would start to question it, I just started saying to myself, what if it's all real? Just what if
Mm.
it's all real? Feel into that for a minute. And that can be a big game changer. Just allowing yourself the what if.
Oh yeah. You know what I meditate about frequently? St. Thomas Aquinas and I shape shifting as dragons. And I'm like in another planet, universe, and this is just I roll with it. I mean I'm gaining wisdom, I'm gaining knowledge, and I'm rolling with it.
Yeah. So go with it. Just go with it is a phrase I use a lot when I'm doing EMDR with people. So now
Mm.
let's talk just a minute about how I realized after a while. I mean, I've been an EMDR therapist for, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. 20 maybe. But as I started doing more of this tapping into my intuition, you go back and you look at, I went back and looked at the process of EMDR, and I could really see where intuition was coming in during the EMDR process. One of the main things that we do in EMDR when people are processing their trauma, the way EMDR works is you go into being an observer of what's coming up in your system. Is it a thought? Is it an image? Is it an emotion? Or is it a physical sensation? And you're in the audience and you're observing it up on the movie screen, right? Well, then when something comes up, if what would happen is people would get like a really random image. And
Mm.
this doesn't make any sense. And as a therapist, you say, go with it. Just go with it. Well, when you go back and look at that, it's like that's their spirit leading them through their processing. I just know that that's what that is.
Yeah.
It's so,
I love two examples, right? Real quick, just to
uh-huh.
give context. When I first started getting my very first paid psychic reading, the woman sat down and I said, I don't know what to tell you. I see a giant squid. And I was talking about this squid and I was like, I see like very like blue, vast ocean waters, like a city kind of. And she was like, my boyfriend got attacked by a giant squid in Australia. And then another time I did a reading and I said, I see Vikings. You have Vikings all around you and they protect you. And I feel like they've been in your lineage for a long time. And she said, I come from a village in Ireland that housed Viking soldiers. So, and they have statues of Vikings all over their town. So just go with it. That
Right,
is spirit. That is spirit. And no matter
right.
how wild it sounds, just go with it.
Right. And that was the very first thing that I was taught by Sonia, which is whatever you're seeing or sensing or is coming in, just report what it is. They'll make sense of it,
Yes.
you know? And my one girlfriend who, I mean, I don't do psychic readings, I just use my intuition with everything else that I do. But my
Mhm.
one girlfriend who does the psychic readings, um, it's really common for her to go, I don't know if any of this is going to make sense to you, but this is what I'm getting, you know?
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's how you got to start out. And people need to understand too, intuition. Like everyone's like, well, if you're a psychic or if you're so intuitive, why don't you have the lottery numbers? So it really is all about what spirit's going to bring through for you, whether it's a hypnosis session or if it's going to a psychic reading or if it's just sitting in your sacred space and meditating. One of the biggest things that I learned in meditating was to have no expectation, to just let it come through. Visualize it literally as like flowing energy, just coming through your crown, coming through and just spewing it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, there's no end to all the different ways to work with spirit and intuition. I mean, every time I do a life between lives session or a past life or a quantum, there's new awarenesses around things. And
Mm,
my old achiever self, when I first started doing this work, would be like, I got to make sure I know exactly where to lead them and am I doing it right? And I've so learned in the past 10 years of doing this that I can just relax and let it unfold because, you know, their soul, my soul, spirit, they've all come together to plan how this is going to benefit this person in the chair. My job is to just stay with them, stay curious with them, stay open if anything comes through for me to
mm.
offer to it. So, um,
I think that's beautiful. I think that's just a sign of surrender. And
yeah,
I appreciate that advice because it's very hard to sit with clients. I've done Reiki for years and I really just started incorporating quantum, like doing Akashic records, going Akashic record journeys and more somatic, energetic healing. And, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself and then feel bad if they don't. Clients are always seeing emotional results, but it's like they want those instant physical results, right? So that tangible, that instant gratification, and it can be a little frustrating. So I do appreciate that. Like I just have to let spirit, like it's what's coming through for them now and not worry about it.
right, right. And because of how I do things, before I ever do an LBL or a past life regression, I do a lot of really getting to know the client and getting their history and talking through what are you really hoping will be the outcome for this. And we spend all kinds of time doing that. And then when we're all done doing that, I say, and whatever's meant to happen is going to happen. So it may line up with everything that we just talked about, or it may be something completely different. We just
Yeah.
go on the journey and see where it goes.
Exactly. And when the clients who are open to that, I feel see the most results, like those quantum leap results,
Yeah.
right? And we'll talk about that in the final episode.
Yeah.
I think the major takeaway for this episode is recognizing one, that we are both a human and spiritual being in this life, and we are navigating both how to utilize that mind tool. Again, it's only a tool. It's no different than, I like to tell people from nursing aspect, it's no different from your liver or your kidneys or your heart or your lung. It has a function, and the function of your brain is like a computer, and you can rewire it, and it only takes 8 weeks to rewire it. And I went from calling myself a piece of shit, meditating every day for 8 weeks, to finally, after 8 weeks, looking in the mirror, and one day it just clicked. I'm like, hi, who are you? I love you. Like getting out of that logical mind, trusting in that imagination or intuition, which is it, and like you said, just go with it and trust. Right. So what would you say, what would be, I guess, words of wisdom for somebody who just feels like they're on that precipice, like they're on that precipice of, I've been doing the mainstream therapy and the cognitive therapy. what's great advice to get them to take that leap of faith to tap in to their inner wisdoms?
So I would say notice notice how there will be a part of you that kind of bubbles up like with this knowing of I just know there's more. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of has this sense of adventure to it. Um, there's like an there's it's almost like a bubbly effervescence. Like I just know there's something more, but I don't quite know how to reach that, right? When when if you've been through trauma, step one is you get from surviving to thriving. But what thriving isn't the end, because then there's thriving and beyond, right? And
Mm-hmm.
thriving and beyond is when actually you have full awareness of who you are as both human and spiritual. So to know where you are in that phase, right? But you had said something at the intro about how do you know, like, do I need to do more trauma work before I do this other stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I used to think, my logical linear person used to think, yeah, you got to like be so far along in your trauma work before this other stuff is going to happen for you or before it's going to be helpful. That's not true. You can come from the other direction. Now, if you have really strong protectors on board in your system, and that's a term that comes out of internal family systems therapy. It's aspects of us um, that can pop up and block opening, right?
Okay.
So if you have a good deal of protectors on board in your system, um, you may run into blocks doing these other processes. But if you're working with a therapist who recognizes it as a protector, you can work with the protector so that it does step aside for you to have your experience. So you might run into some blocks, but those can be worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can I ask, is the block considered the logic, the ego getting in the way
it
of?
is, but it's more defined.
Okay.
Like there's different categories of protectors.
Okay.
For instance,
Like a neural pathway? Like it's an actual.
how I wonder how IFS would describe that, because I haven't studied how IFS describes what's happening in the brain.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll look it up. No worries.
Yeah, yeah.
We can
That's a
look that
good
up.
question, though. Now I'm going to go
No,
look
I'm just
that up.
curious if it's like, is it egoic? Is it actual like a neurochemical block? Is
It's
it? Yeah,
part
I'll
of
look that
the it's part of the psyche, so it's
up.
absolutely egoic.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. So like this would be something like if there's a significant trauma that someone wants to work through and they're just not able to get through to it.
right,
Okay.
right. So you might for let me think of an example. Let me think of an example. So let's say somebody has significant depression in their life, and we decide to do a past life regression to see if there is a past life that is related to the depression in the current life, because there could still be an energetic connection there, right?
Hmm.
um, and let's say when we go into the past life, they can't get into the past life. It could be a protector thinking that, this person isn't ready yet to see that
Got it.
past life.
Got it.
Got
Okay.
it?
Thank you. Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
it's
Yes.
like that.
Yes. Okay. I got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
yeah, so being open to that if
yeah,
there's a
the other
protector.
thing about protectors is they come on when we're young. And so they have not chronologically updated to present time, which is
Mm,
why they think they still need to keep the person safe.
okay.
Because, they came on board when the person was a child, and their job is to make sure the child is okay. And now the person is an adult, so a lot of how we work with the protector is to just update them. Like, thank you so much for all that you've done. And, Sally here in the chair is all grown up now, and she wants to be able to have a better understanding of if
Mm,
there's something in her past life soul lineage that would help her now. And she's got all the support that she needs right now to be able to see that. And it's really going to help her to see that.
mm. I love
Right.
that.
So we
Yeah,
update,
yeah.
we update the system
I love it. In the now, in the
in the
quantum.
now.
I love that so much. Well, thank you. So, this has been an amazing intuitive insight on the logic mind and intuition. And now we are going to move on to talking about energy healing and how that can all come into play with self healing and ascension with Kathy. So, thank you everyone for listening. Peace out and God bless.